1910 Paris floods. The Seine River of Paris is formed by the confluence of three important streams. After a rainy summer and autumn in 1909, the water levels rose and rose. The winter of 1910 was marked by heavy rainfalls as significant snowfalls and torrential rains hit all over Europe. The land was saturated with water, causing a strong rise of the Seine upstream of Paris, as the tributaries were also in flood. After the first flood in January 1910, the two secondary floods occurred in February and March. The flood record up to 1910 floods shows the water levels heights above the bed of the Seine River. There was also a historically recorded humidity measuring service of Paris, which played a very useful part in issuing forecasts and rendering valuable service to the community.
Parisians would also use the submerged statue pictured as a measurement to gauge the water height, which reached 8.62 meters higher than normal. This was the highest the Seine had ever been. Fortunately, floods in the neighborhood of Paris could be predicted sufficiently in advance to enable remedial measures to be undertaken. Since the Seine rises slowly and the effects of floods are visible several days beforehand, there is ample warning for people to evacuate, which thousands managed to do in time. Those who remained in Paris suffered greatly. 20,000 buildings flooded, out of 80,000 total. 150,000 people were affected, and 200,000 people sought refuge in the capital. 12 of Paris's 20 subdivisions were flooded as the city became unfamiliar and dangerous. Water that was eventually pumped from cellars was rid of detritus and foul-smelling muds, and disinfected as quickly as possible to avoid the risk of epidemics. Disinfection of premises and flooded streets was the responsibility of city departments, which took them 2 months to clean, eliminating any risk of health catastrophe. Soldiers were also requisitioned to build bridges and footbridges, install dikes against the overflows, and to fill gaps and pump the water.
The water was pumped and evacuated in several strategic places of the city, the first goal being to evacuate underground and railroad tracks. These rapid mechanical pumping sometimes resulted in scouring and erosion due to a fast current with the risk of house collapse. The two railroad tracks that had been built along the Seine River were easy roads to accelerate the flood. 4 train stations were affected. During the flood, the factories, the stations, and the cables supplying the electricity were drowned, and the current was cut even in non-flooded areas. The metro, like the sewer pipes, participated in the propagation of water. These two technological advances turned against the city, a victim of its modernity. At the beginning of the 20th century, Paris was one of the world's best-equipped cities with public transport. The 1910 flood remained in memories as the most damageable. It was the result of several simultaneous meteorological elements, which were combined with the geographical location of Paris and the reaction of the soils.
In the capital, water took the recently opened underground and surface waterways for transport and sewerage. There were numerous impermeable districts within the Seine basin where rainfall found its way almost entirely into the riverbed. Water wasn't the only wanderer that washed up, though. The video above demonstrates how quickly the Seine River rose, and that places people normally traveled on foot now had to be accessed by boat.
Led the lap of honor. In Paris, the swollen River Seine forces lovers and layabouts to abandon their places on the embankment. Still, it does bring the fish a bit nearer. But further along the river at Villeneuve-Saint-Georges, nearly every house has become an island. Police and firemen have had to use boats for rescue. As well as the damage to property, there's also the danger of polluted water supplies, a big hazard to health. From France underwater to an engineering triumph under the River Mersey, it's the completion of the vast drilling operation for Liverpool's second Mersey tunnel.